What's up, y'all, and welcome to 2nd and 15, a Philadelphia Eagles fan podcast presented by Old City Sports Network, the best network for all your Philadelphia sports needs. This is your host, Michael Roscoe. Saquon Barkley makes history yet again as he helps the Eagles pull off a second win over the Rams, this time in order to move on to the NFC Championship Game. We'll recap that game as well as discuss Eagles news and preview this crucial championship matchup against NFC East Division rival, the Washington Commanders. But without wasting any more time, let's recap the scoring moments in that victory over the Rams. Starting in the first quarter with just over 3 minutes into the quarter, the Eagles find themselves on a 2nd and 4 on the Rams' 44-yard line. Hurts fakes the handoff to Saquon Barkley, turns right, makes one tackler miss, breaks another tackler, and takes it all the way to the crib for a 44-yard rushing touchdown. However, Jake Elliott misses the point after, Eagles up 6-0. Around 6.5 minutes left in the quarter, Rams have the ball on a 3rd and goal. Quarterback Matthew Stafford steps back, fires a pass into double coverage, but it's somehow caught by the tight end Tyler Higbee for a touchdown. Rams take the lead 7-6. On a 3rd and 4 with about a minute and 15 seconds left in the quarter, Eagles have the ball. Hurts takes the snap, hands off to Saquon Barkley, who turns on the Jets and takes it all the way to the house, even slowing down a tad bit at the end, but still too quick for Jared Verse and the Rams defenders for another Eagles touchdown, Saquon's first of the night. Eagles retake the lead 13-7. The only score of the second quarter would be a Joshua Carty field goal to cut the lead down to 3. Eagles still up 13-10. Moving into the third quarter with just about 7.5 minutes left, another Josh Carty field goal ties this game up at 13 all. With just over 2 minutes left, Jake Elliott extends the lead with a 44-yard field goal. Eagles up 16-13. And with under a minute left in the third quarter, with the Eagles backed up beyond their own 5, Jalen Hurts holds on to the ball for a little too long, and the O-line couldn't contain the rush, leading to a sack in the end zone for a safety. Eagles 16, Rams 15. Moving into the fourth quarter, Jake Elliott would add 2 more field goals at the 13.5 and 6.5 minute marks to take the score up 22-15. Then, with about 4.5 minutes left in the game, on a 1st and 10 from the Eagles' 22, Hurts hands off to Barkley, who goes up the left this time and gets his second 60-plus yard rushing touchdown of the game, taking it 78 yards to the crib. However, Jake Elliott misses his second point after, and the Eagles take the lead 28-15. With just under 3 minutes left, Rams have the ball in the red zone. Matthew Stafford steps back and fires a quick pass to Colby Parkinson for a touchdown. And after the Eagles couldn't do anything with the ball on their next offensive drive, the Rams get close to possibly winning this game with just under a minute left. But our defense held their own, and the Eagles will move on to the NFC Championship Game with a final score 28-22. Jalen Hurts would go 15 for 20 for 128 yards, no touchdowns. However, he committed no turnovers and carried the ball 7 times for 70 yards, including a rushing touchdown of his own, which came from that longest rush of 44 yards. Saquon Barkley would absolutely go off against the Rams once again, carrying for 26 times for 205 yards and 2 scores, as well as 4 receptions for 27 yards. The Eagles' leading receiver of this game would be Dallas Goedert, making 4 catches for 56 yards. All right, before we go over that game, let's go over some Eagles news. With the next round of playoff action set, the Eagles will host the Washington Commanders on Sunday, January 26th at 3 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox. Additionally, some positive news came from Nick Sirianni this week. In a press conference on Wednesday, the coach indicated that both quarterback Jalen Hurts and cornerback Quinyon Mitchell would both participate in Wednesday's walkthrough. During the Rams game, Mitchell suffered a shoulder injury and did not return to the game, while Jalen Hurts' knee was bent awkwardly back during a tackle, which probably should have been a penalty, would have been one if it was Patrick Mahomes. However, it occurred in the second half of the game, but he still managed to play the rest of the game, and Mitchell, along with other sources, stated that his shoulder is, quote, not serious when it comes to its injury and should be good to go on Sunday. It seems like we've got another annual conversation about Jalen's knee and a lot of questions this time around his mobility and how it might be hindered for the upcoming game, but we're trending in the right direction so far with Jalen, and hopefully that continues as we get closer to Sunday. In other news, Eagles star running back Saquon Barkley has been named a finalist for both the NFL's MVP award and the Offensive Player of the Year award. Honestly, this is no surprise here with how amazing Barkley has been all year long. Hopefully he gets at least one of these awards. On the other side of the ball, you got linebacker Zach Bond, who has been named as a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year. He flipped the script completely on the whole league this year, going from an outside linebacker edge type of player in New Orleans, who wasn't seeing a ton of success, to being one of the best interior linebackers in the league this year. Absolutely incredible things been coming out of Bond all season long. And finally, we got a couple late season roster moves that were made for this upcoming NFC Championship game, as the Eagles signed offensive lineman Cameron Irving and tight end Nick Muse to the practice squad while releasing defensive end KJ Henry. Additionally, the Eagles opened up the 21-day practice window for wide receiver / punt returner Britton Covey, who suffered a neck injury against the Ravens back in December. However, at this time, there is no information dictating if he is going to play in this game. He was a limited participant in Wednesday's walkthrough practice. All right, let's go over some discussions, opinions, and overreactions from this win against the Rams. But before I get into all of this, it's okay to take what I say with a grain of salt. I'll even do it for myself because I'm well aware of the weather conditions. I'm aware of the snow. I'm aware of how cold it was, how the wind contributed to things. I'm aware of all these conditions and how they impacted the game, because not only did they impact our game, they definitely impacted the Bills-Ravens game as well, a game in which there were similar results and stats, but we'll get into that later on. So, starting with the offense, our run game, immaculate as always. 285 total rushing yards against the Rams, 3 total touchdowns from both our quarterback and our running back in an environment like this snowy game where passing is kind of difficult. Now you might say, hey, Matthew Stafford could do it, getting the passing game going. He threw 2 touchdowns and 26 completions. Yes, that is true, and it's not easy to do. But at the same time, he attempted 44 passes, resulting in roughly around a 50% completion rate. Jalen Hurts, while he only attempted 20 passes, he completed 15 of them for a 75% completion rate, and out of those 5, at least 1 or 2 of them were in the hands of the receivers but then dropped. But I'll get into that in a little bit. But with our run game, Saquon made history yet again. He just keeps making history. It's absolutely insane. His 205 rushing yards are the 5th most in a playoff game in NFL history, and with his performance, Saquon Barkley becomes just the 5th player since 1950 to have 2 200-plus rushing yard games against the same team in one season. And then to top it all off for the Eagles specifically, the last touchdown he had was the longest rushing touchdown in Eagles history, a whopping 78 yards. This dude is just a walking stat line. He's been absolutely electric this entire season, and in this game, he was the pinnacle of the offense. That statement is not meant to discredit good things that the other offensive players did, but it was obvious that Saquon was the star on offense on Sunday night. As for the rest of our offense, our O-line was struggling a little bit, I'm not going to lie, allowing 7 sacks for a total loss of 63 yards. That cannot happen. Now, part of this is the O-line's fault within itself. We can acknowledge that. But Jalen Hurts wasn't helping in some of those situations either. Also, the offensive line had a couple penalties. There was a miscue. One of those penalties took away a touchdown opportunity in the red zone, and another one negated a huge gain from Dallas Goedert. But hopefully these are things that can be easily cleaned up and are less likely to occur in better conditions. Now with Jalen Hurts, my biggest issue, which is what I just talked about last week, was him holding on to the ball for too long. This is not new information. I hate repeating myself on this, but it continues to happen. Now, I was getting pissed about this, and while I still do think he has a tendency to hold on to the ball for too long, you got to take this particular game with a grain of salt. Even A.J. Brown said it in a post-game interview, quote, "You got to give this game a pass. The conditions were crazy. We couldn't even really see out there, so it'd be hard to get passing done. Yeah, the Rams, were doing it, but they ain't have a choice that late in the game. Their first choice would have probably been to run the ball." So yeah, with the conditions, if your receivers are having a hard time just seeing what the fuck they're doing, how can one expect Jalen to confidently throw essentially blindly to his receivers? Again, yes, Matthew Stafford was able to make 26 completions, but if you're throwing damn near 50 times, that's not as successful as a passing game as you might think. Overall, the offense has some things they need to clean up, but again, I feel like these are mistakes that are less likely to occur in more ideal weather conditions, and they are mistakes that can be easily cleaned up during this week's practice. As for our quarterback, a lot of Eagles fans knew when the numbers came out for him after this game that he was going to face criticism. And it continues to piss me off how much more Jalen Hurts is criticized compared to other QBs when they perform damn near identical. Other quarterbacks get so much more praise than Jalen, despite the similar, if not subpar, playing level compared to Hurts. Just pay attention to the stats of Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Jalen Hurts after their wins of this divisional round. First, with Josh Allen. He went 16 for 22, 127 yards, no touchdowns, 10 carries for 20 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. Then you have Patrick Mahomes. 16 for 25, 177 yards, 1 touchdown, 7 carries for 14 yards, and no scores on the ground. Then you have Jalen Hurts. 15 for 20, 128 yards, no touchdowns through the air, but 7 carries for 70 yards and a touchdown. So they're damn near identical stats between Josh Allen, Mahomes, and Jalen Hurts. Like, it's really hard to argue that. And here's the thing is, Patrick Mahomes played in much better weather conditions than Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts, yet he's putting up similar numbers. Now, here are some examples of what people are saying about Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. Quote, "He had a flawless game, even if the numbers and statistics don't jump out at you." That was Nate Burleson. "Patrick Mahomes is unstoppable." That was from Chris Canty. "Josh Allen is an absolute MVP. Swag you." Now, here's what people are saying about Jalen Hurts. Quote, "Jalen was having a rough game. Nick Wright. Hurts didn't have to do too much. The passing game has got to be better to win a Super Bowl." Mina Kimes, to which I agree with a little bit, but anyway. Another quote, "Make Jalen throw the ball." This is in relation to slowing down the Eagles' offense, coming from Herm Edwards. You did have Marcus Spears saying, quote, "Give credit to Hurts," and calling out the hypocrisy on Eagles' lack of passing when Josh Allen only had 22 passes, yet tons of people are praising him. But that's the diamond in the rough when it comes to national analysts. Most of the time, you'll see Hurts criticism and Allen Mahomes praise, even when all three put up the same level of performance. But you know what? Keep the Hurts criticism coming. Your hate is only our motivation. Moving on to the defensive side of the ball, Jalen Carter is an absolute fucking beast. Between the game-saving tackle on third down towards the end of the game, the held-up sack on Matthew Stafford, and the overall pressure this man brings, He is a superstar on the defense. 5 tackles, 3 quarterback hits, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, and a pass deflection, all while being double team blocked on literally 70% of his snaps in that game, which is absolutely wild. Even with some injuries pre-game with Nakobe Dean and during the game with Quinyon Mitchell, the guys who filled in for them did their part and then some. Linebacker Oren Burks with another solid game with 6 total tackles, 2 tackles for loss, a quarterback hit, and a pass deflection. He's been killing it in relief of Dean. Then, when Quinyon went down with a shoulder injury, Isaiah Rodgers, for the most part, did very well. 5 total tackles, 2 pass deflections, and a fumble recovery with a 40-yard return. Dude was absolutely booking it. But gotta give a credit to their right guard, number 69. I can't remember who it was. But he caught up and pushed Rodgers out of bounds before he can get into the end zone. Anyway, Zach Bond had another fumble recovery. Nolan Smith forced another fumble and had 4 tackles, a tackle for loss, and a sack. Many playmakers on this team did their part to help get that win. Yeah, there were a couple of mistakes that were made along the way, such as the dropped interception by Cooper DeJean, an interception ripped out from Isaiah Rodgers' hands. But my biggest concern in this game, as well as the previous game, has been the tackling on run plays. Kyron Williams had over 100 yards and broke a lot of tackles on a couple of runs. We cannot continue to allow significant yards after contact. I know this game was wet, cold, and snowy, but our defense has to put hella reps at tackling practice this week if we want to beat a team who has a decent running back room and a great scrambling quarterback. Other than that, this defense continues to be electric, and not a ton of criticism other than please just get better at tackling, and y'all have got to get off the field a lot faster, because what's continuing to happen is that our defense is on for too long, they're getting gassed, and they give up garbage time scores. I've talked about this a handful of times as well. They allowed a touchdown to the Rams with under 4 minutes left in the game, and then almost allowed another one that would have won the game with under a minute left. Our defense cannot continue to subject themselves to these huge garbage time scoring opportunities. Part of that comes with our defense getting off the field quickly enough, but that's also on our offense being able to drive down the field, remain on the field, and score in those opportunities when they are on the field. And I know this is technically more special teams, but what the actual fuck is going on with Jake Elliott right now? He has got to step the fuck up in this game because he was horrendous versus the Rams. Honestly, I think he's fallen victim to the contract curse. I've talked about this in other episodes, but for those who haven't heard it from me, I've mainly seen it with quarterbacks. But what it is players who sign a big contract before the season begins, whether that be an extension, a brand new contract, whatever the case may be, they either underperform like a motherfucker or get injured in the season after they sign. And guess what? We gave Elliott a contract extension before this season began. So there's that. But anyway, I hope Jake has been doing nothing but taking kicks all hours of practice and maybe even then some, because we need him to be better than he has been over these past couple of games. All right, y'all, let's go ahead and preview this NFC Championship matchup. So the Eagles host the NFC Championship for the second time in 3 years as the Washington Commanders make the trip up I-95 as these two NFC East teams compete to represent the conference on the biggest stage in American sports, Super Bowl 59. And here's just a few things I think we need to do on both sides of the ball to get this win. Starting with the offense, I said this last week, and this time weather shouldn't be a factor, but Kellen Moore, Nick Sirianni, and Jalen Hurts have to get the pass game going somehow. I know our run game is great, but we're going to have to throw against the Commanders' defense a little bit, because even though that their run defense isn't as well as their pass defense, they're going to anticipate us running the ball hard and often. But A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, while reliable, haven't put up big numbers in the playoffs so far, and this is where I think that changes. Both of these guys are due for a big game, and as long as we get something consistent with the passing game, I can see these guys having a big game to make up for the smaller numbers from the first two playoff games. But a lot of that is dependent not just on Jalen Hurts and his ability to pass the ball, but also on Kellen Moore and Nick Sirianni for dialing up the passing game more. The divisional round, sure. The weather was a factor, and the other quarterbacks who played in the snow, other than Matt Stafford, had similar low passing numbers as well. But the weather this Sunday, at this moment, looks to be cloudy with about 38-40 degrees, much better conditions than what they faced versus the Rams. We have to have another game in which we silence haters by throwing the ball well. You know, like we did against the Steelers, where Jalen threw for 290 yards and 2 touchdowns, and then came out looking like Denzel Washington from Training Day saying, "So that's what y'all wanted to see, huh?" We need that energy, and we need that Jalen Hurts for this game. He's mentioned it before. Just because we don't doesn't mean we can't, in referring to passing. However, this is a game where we need to elevate those passing numbers. I know on paper, Washington's pass defense is much better than the run defense. I'm not saying we don't run the ball. We should absolutely run the ball. I'm just saying we got to diversify the play calling and add more unique passing plays so that the offense doesn't become predictable. I'm not asking for 70-yard bombs down the field. I'm just asking for a little more passing with the same type of security and carefulness that Jalen has been exhibiting with his passing so far. Kellen's got to get some short routes in the middle, check downs, or some crossing routes like 5 to 7 yards from the line of scrimmage more than he has been so far. You look at a lot of the passing plays from this Rams game, the Eagles were using a fuck ton of vertical routes for all their receivers, like 10 yards plus off the line for 4 receivers. Everyone is covered while the middle of the field is wide fucking open. We cannot rely solely on just vertical routes, and we gotta get these short inside routes going, these crossing routes, these checkdowns, these slants, if we want to see more success with this passing game. It's right there in front of our faces. Additionally, Jalen has got to speed up his decision making. I know I keep saying this over and over and over again, but it needs to happen. I appreciate that he hasn't been playing hero ball and containing the ball, but opportunities are being missed. I know Nick has praised Jalen for his ball security and the decision to take a sack versus throw an interception. I get that. I totally get that. But we need to be able to move the ball down the field and keep our offense on the field in an efficient manner that helps us put us in a winning situation. But also, like, if you see Frankie Louvu and you ain't got a blocker, honestly, Jalen, just go down. Because that motherfucker is looking to hit, and he's the one that took out Jalen in week 16. So I don't mind if he slides to avoid another Frankie Louvu injury. But anyway, I say this. You know, our offense remaining on the field because here's what I think our defense needs to do first and foremost to help get the win. And you might find some irony in this, but we got to get off the field. Our defense, they got to get off the field as quickly as they can. The problem I've seen with the Eagles defense is that sometimes they're on the field for way too long and garbage time points were given up. It happened in both games against Washington this year, with the second one being a score that won the game for the Commanders. Our defense has to absolutely stop Washington's offense. On third down situations, they got to create these second, third, fourth, and long situations and prevent them from converting. The quicker our defense can get their offense off the field, the more energy they will have to contain Washington's offense in these garbage time types of situations. Additionally, our defense, they gotta contain the middle of the field. Whether it's Jaden Daniels scrambling, a handoff to Brian Robinson Jr., a check down to Austin Eckler, or short inside routes to a tight end or a slot receiver. If you look at Washington versus Detroit, they had a lot of success with plays in the middle of the field. And I think that's where Washington will look throughout most of the game, especially if Quinyon Mitchell is able to play and contains Terry McLaurin. Once Mitchell has shown he's a total shutdown corner in a given game, quarterbacks don't even look his way. That takes away a whole ass side of the field. I know we won't have Nakobe Dean in there, but Oren Burks has stepped up tremendously, and you have Zach Bond, who's been an absolute fucking unit, and Cooper DeJean, who can make a hit when we need him to. So use those guys to prevent plays and or make turnovers in the middle of the field. Make them force a scramble from Daniels or throw an inaccurate Hail Mary desperation pass, Because at some point, Jalen Carter will be in Jaden Daniels' face, and Daniels is going to have to make some type of decision quickly enough, even if it's the wrong one. And finally, probably one of the most important things I think our defense needs to get better at: tackling. The tackling against the run in these past 2 playoff games has been whack. We let Josh Jacobs and Kyron Williams both rush for over 100 yards against us, and between Jaden Daniels and Brian Robinson Jr., those are some good runners that we're going to have to bring down on the first hit, not 4 to 5 hits later because we couldn't tackle the first time. You could include Austin Eckler in that mix, but I think he's been more of a check down receiving running back, so our defense also needs to be on the lookout for that. But anyway, our tackling against the run has to be on fucking point this game if we want to get to the Super Bowl. All right, let's go ahead and cap this episode off with some predictions. Now, I've been waiting for this game all week, and it's still a few days away. Yet when I was thinking about what the score could be, I just kept seeing a 24-21 Eagles win. I feel it. I anticipate this being a close game, maybe not as much of a shootout as their last meeting, but I'm predicting a 24-21 Eagles win to send us to the Super Bowl. I'm predicting Saquon to get in the end zone once, A.J. Brown to get in the end zone once, and hell, you know what? I'll even predict Jahan Dotson to score a touchdown, which would be a perfect revenge scenario as he faces his old team for the 3rd time, but this time for so much more. All right, y'all, that is it for this week's episode. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow on YouTube, X, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Welcome back, by the way, by searching at 2nd and 15. That's 2NDAND15, or by the full name 2nd and 15, a Philadelphia Eagles fan podcast. You can also find the audio for each and every single episode releasing Thursday mornings on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Player FM, or wherever you get your podcasts. This episode, 2nd and 15, and Old City Sports Network are sponsored by Righteous Felon Craft Jerky. Use promo code OCSN for 15% off the best jerky around. They got some awesome flavors like Soul Survivor, OG Hickory, Darth Garlic, and more. Any orders over $50 will receive free shipping. We're also brought to you by Warlord Beard Oil. Use promo code OLDSPORTS, all caps, at warlordbeardoil.com for 15% off your beard oils, washes, and many other products for all your beard care needs. Orders over $75 will receive free shipping. We are also brought to you by SeatGeek. Download the app and use promo code Old City Sports Network, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. We're also brought to you by some local sponsors, including Robert Hangholt Construction. If you are in the greater Philadelphia region and you're thinking, hey, I need some roof work done, I'm thinking about new sidings, I want to redo my deck, call the #1 contractor in the area at 610-348-1066 to get a free estimate on your home project today. We also have Decals by Aaron for all your Delco product and merchandise. Your #1 spot for everything Delco. Check them out at decalsbyaaron.com today. We're also brought to you by Iron and Steel Threads. Visit ironsteelthreads.com and use promo code OldCity10, the number 10, but in all caps for the words, for 10% off the entire website. A portion of the proceeds will go to youth hockey organizations. And finally, don't forget to check us out at oldcitysports.com and click that merchandise tab to get some awesome merchandise from 2nd and 15, as well as other shows such as Flyers Alley and Check the Net. Once again, thank you all for joining. This is 2nd and 15, a Philadelphia Eagles fan podcast presented by Old City Sports Network. We'll see you all next week. Don't forget to tune in to the NFC Championship Game, which again is this Sunday, January 26th at 3 p.m. Eastern on Fox. Have a safe and fun weekend. Don't forget to stay fly like an eagle. And as always, go Birds.